Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda and this is Birchandlily, where I talk about all sorts of fun, crafty, knitting type stuff. Today is another pattern roundup video and there's a special reason for this one. I am doing a knit along with Carson of Carsley Handmade. We are doing a knit along to use up all of those special single skeins in your stash. I know I have too many of them, so we're hoping that you guys do as well and you're going to join in with us. So basically I'll just run through all of the information for that Cal real quick and then we'll jump into some patterns that I've pulled that you could possibly use for some of those special single skeins in your stash. All you have to do to enter is post a picture on Instagram with the hashtag Special Skein KAL 2023 and tag Carson and I. All of our information will be down below in the description and anything is eligible to enter. It can be a whip, it can be a finished object, but you have to start it within the time of the knit along, which is May 10th to June 10th. So if you have some of those single skeins in your stash that you want to use up, definitely join along with us and I'm going to show you some really fun patterns that you can use to do so today. Quick before we jump on in, you can find me on birchandlilyfiber.com and on Instagram at birch.and.lily. Okay, I'm going to be knitting as per usual because why would I just sit here and not knit and just stare at a screen? I can knit without looking, so we're gonna knit without looking. The first pattern that I have pulled is what I think I'm gonna be knitting. This is the Brownstone Beanie by Tori. It is a fingering weight pattern and the gauge for this one is 20 stitches by 30 rows, which equals 4 inches or 10 centimeters of knitting. This pattern it has a really wide size range, anywhere from baby to an adult large. I did write down head circumference for this one. So you're looking at about 14.4 inches to 19.2 inches. That's 36.5 centimeters to 48.8 centimeters circumference. And the pattern does call for about 4 inches or 10 centimeters of negative ease so that you get that really nice, snug, cozy fit. I love this pattern because it's kind of like the Musselburgh in a way, which, spoiler, that's the next pattern. But it's kind of like that one in a way where you can use up a whole skein of yarn and not really have anything left over. It's also really neat because you get to use the skein up in a couple different ways. So the folded brim you knit with just the yarn held single, and then once you move on to the body of the hat, you start holding the yarn double to make it really, really warm and cozy. But then you also kind of get to see the yarn, especially if you're using something variegated, shine in a little bit different light. So I think that's really cool. And yeah, I appreciate that there are lots of sizes available. So if you need a quick baby knit, this would be a fun one. Or, like I said, using up a single skein that you have kicking around that you love. It looks a lot like, if you're familiar with the Carhartt beanies that seem to be really in style. Oh, also, if I call something a toque, I'm Canadian, and that is what we call a beanie, is a toque. So, yeah, I'll try and remember beanie, because that seems to be the universal term that everyone understands, and then someone says toque, and they're like, what in the world are you saying? But those are interchangeable, and I ramble in these videos a lot, so I might say toque without thinking. But yeah, it reminds me of the Carhartt beanies. And I know I see people wearing them a lot. I'm not totally up on the trends, but they seem to be really popular. I like the look of the fit. I don't particularly like wearing my toque with a lot of space up above. I would rather pull it down on my head. So we'll have to see how long the pattern calls to knit this, if I'll have to adjust that or not, so I don't have a lot of extra space at the top. But I do know from knitting many of Tori's patterns that there's lots of information, so I'm sure she includes how to adjust the hat to your liking. So Brownstone Beanie is definitely a fun one. And then also, like I said, I pulled the Musselburgh. This is a pattern by Ysolda Teague. Everyone talks about it, but it is the perfect single skein stash busting hat. It calls for anywhere from a fingering to a DK, and the fun thing about this hat is that you don't have to do a gauge swatch. You basically just cast on with your preferred needles, start knitting, and measure your gauge partway through the hat. And then the pattern gives you all the information you need to know what you have to do with the gauge that you have. So it's a really great mindless knit. And so you cast it on, you do the increases for the one side, and then you just knit like one big long stockinette tube for as long as you want. A lot of people, and what I do with mine as well, is do all the increases, and once you've done that, measure, or not measure, weigh your hat to see how much yarn you used. So you'll have to weigh the skein at the beginning before you start the project, weigh it once you've done all the increases, and then you'll know when you get to the other end of the big long tube how much yarn you need left for the decreases so that you can use up every single little bit of that skein. So it's a really, really great stash buster, and it's so nice and warm and cozy. It's knit, so you fold the one part of the hat inside of itself, so there's double thick, but then you can also knit it so you can fold the brim up, so then the brim is quadruple thick? Would that be what it is? It's really, really thick and cozy and warm, and it's just such a great mindless knit. If you like knitting in the movie theaters, this is a knit for you. In the car, you don't have to look at it. If you haven't mastered knitting without looking, highly recommend. But if you have, this is a great pattern to do that with. So did I write anything else down? Let's see. I went on a tangent there. So like I said, any gauge, and it's available in baby to adult extra large sizes. So 16 inches to 26 inches head circumference, or 40 centimeters to 65 centimeters circumference around your head. And it doesn't say anything about negative ease, but I would say, as with any hat, you want a little bit so that it fits nice and snug on your head. So, I don't know if I said at the beginning, but I did sort this out kind of based off of like different types of patterns. So those are the two hat patterns that I pulled, and I did find one really pretty pair of mittens. So these are the Snowdrift mittens, a pattern by Woolen Pine. They are knit out of DK weight yarn with a gauge of 20 stitches by 30 rows, so that equals 4 inches or 10 centimeters of knitting, and they are available in 3 different sizes, teen to adult large. And I did write down 2 different measurements to figure out size with this one, just because hands are a little bit complicated. Like, you have your wrist, but then you also have like the finger measurement as well. So wrist circumference is anywhere from 4.5 to 5 inches, or 11.5 to 12.75 centimeters. And it did also state on the pattern that that wrist measurement is quite stretchy. It does look to me like it's knit in a 2x2 rib, so you are going to get a lot of stretch on that. It should give you quite a few options like in fit, even though there's 3 sizes. Because of the stretch, it should fit lots of different hand sizes. They also do state the finger circumference, so the measurement at the widest part of your fingers when they're put together. That is anywhere from 7 to 9 inches, or 17.75 to 23 centimeters. Woolen Pine has really, really informative and full of information patterns. So it's written, charted, it does have video tutorials, and I think it's beautiful. The cuff isn't it really, really long, so you could fold the cuff over if you wanted, and then it just moves into such squishy, beautiful cables. They would knit up super quickly. There's not like lots of cable turns in it, but enough that it keeps it really interesting. And then there's some beautiful seed stitch mixed in there as well. The thumb on this, you knit like a thumb gusset and then put the stitches on hold for the thumb, knit the rest of the mitten, and then move back to finishing up the thumb. So not terribly complicated. If you've knit a sweater or something, you know how to put stitches on hold. If you haven't and you've been wanting to, this would be a great way to learn about putting stitches on hold, because it's such a small amount of stitches that you put on hold for a thumb. Very cute. I think I'm gonna need a pair. I like that they're DK weight too, because they knit knit up relatively quickly then, but you'll still be able to use up that whole skein. So that is the only mitten pattern I found, believe it or not. Because again, because these are special skeins, I wanted to pull some stuff that was either really classic and simple to show off the skein, or something really, really beautiful to make the skein really, really shine. So I did find 2 different cowl patterns. I love cowls for the winter. I tend to lose scarves. They fall off my shoulders and I don't notice. So cowls are great because they can't fall off. The first one that I pulled is called the Lemon Scone at Home Cowl. This is a pattern from Lauren Rad. It's knit out of fingering weight yarn with a gauge of 28 stitches by 42 rows. That equals 4 inches or 10 centimeters. There is only one size included in this pattern. Its dimensions are about 10 inches high, that's about 25 centimeters, and 20 inches or 51 centimeters in circumference. So that's like all the way around. It's really pretty. It's got a lot going on, but it's all like really delicate and feminine. There's some lace in there, there's some seed stitch, there's baubles. Baubles are fun. I really like baubles. I'm not sure I would knit well, actually no, I'm knitting a sweater with baubles, so I can't even say that. I like them in moderation. I don't want a sweater that's literally all baubles, but I do like a little bit of baubles here and there. They're really fun to knit too. I tend to do, this is a tangent. This video is going to be tangenty, apparently. I'm talkative today. But I tend to do my baubles with a crochet hook instead and do a crochet bauble. And then you do this really fun thing where you choke it with your yarn, and then there's no way it's going to like slide into the back of your knitting. Maybe one day I will do a tutorial on how I do that. But yeah, baubles are fun. That's what I'm getting at. And I don't know, it's just really delicate and beautiful. I don't think it's going to be the warmest cowl in the world because it's got the lace and all that going on, but I think it would make a really nice spring or like transition into winter type cowl. The other cowl that I pulled is chunkier and warmer, but still really, really pretty. And it's a free pattern. I didn't realize, but it is a free pattern, so that makes it even better. This is the Leaf Trellis Cowl. It's a pattern by Borchardt, and it is, like I said, knit out of DK weight yarn. It's got a gauge of 20 stitches by 30 rows. That equals, again, 4 inches or 10 centimeters. It is one size as well, and the measurements for it's about 12 inches or 30.5 centimeters tall, and about 22 inches or 56 centimeters in circumference. I think this would be a great pattern if you've never cabled before to learn some really simple cabling. There's nothing complicated. You're cabling on the same stitches all the time, and it's just, it elevates the ribbing of the cowl so it's not just like straight lines. There's some movement and some interest in it. So yeah, if you haven't cabled before, I think this would be a great way to learn knitting this cowl. And the pattern is charted and written, so no matter what, if you don't know how to read charts, you can read the written instructions. And yeah, I've knit a couple of Claire's patterns as well, and I've had a lot of fun with them, so I think this would be a great one. And it's free, so you get to use up that special skein of DK weight yarn and do it, well, kind of for free, because you paid for the yarn, but you know what I mean. So I also have some shawl patterns that I pulled. I feel like when you have that really special skein of fingering weight yarn, if you're a shawl person, I don't know, it just spreads the color of that skein across such a wide area, and you get to see so much of it and enjoy so much of it. So there was quite a few shawls that I pulled that I thought were really beautiful and also great for spring and summer. Because you're using only one skein of yarn for these, they tend to be a little bit lacier, so they're more of like a light layering piece for the spring and summer. So the first one I pulled is the Aperture Shawl. This is a pattern by Ambah O'Brien. It does come in 2 sizes, but if you're looking to use up one skein of yarn, you'll only be able to knit the small size. But if you have 2 skeins of yarn, you can knit the larger size. This is knit out of fingering weight yarn as well. Its gauge is 20 stitches by 32 rows. I know that sounds loose, but that has to do with the fact that there is so much lace beautiful lace in this pattern. It's knit top down and is a triangle shaped shawl, and it has this really unique, it looks stripy almost. It's like a lattice work lace, but in striped sections. And those striped sections move along and work with the shape of the shawl, the triangle shawl. Yeah, I just think it's really cool. It's almost geometric in a way. So if you're not a super like fancy dancy lace person, I know I'm usually not, this might be a really good pattern for you. And knitting the small size, you can use that whole skein, single skein of fingering weight yarn that you love. So I did actually pull 2 shawl patterns from the same designer, and man, I had a hard time picking. She has a lot of shawls that are specifically designed for just using up one skein of yarn, which I think is really, really cool. So the first one that I pulled is called Gossamer. This is from Janina Kallio. We're going with Kallio. This is knit out of fingering weight yarn. It is 20 stitches by 40 rows for gauge, and it comes in one size. It's knit top down, and it's a beautiful crescent shawl with airy, like lattice looking lace again, and then it's also got a picot bind off. It's just really pretty and airy and delicate. The pattern, from what it says on Ravelry, is full of information. It's written and charted. It has like stitch counts throughout for you, which I know sometimes shawls don't have. And then if you get off, especially on lace, if you get off on stitch count, it is so hard to figure out where you messed up. So I think it's great that there's stitch counts included. There's blocking instructions in there as well, a full schematic drawn up of what your shawl should come out to size-wise. Very, very thorough pattern, which is great. One nice thing about shawl patterns though is you obviously have to pay a little bit of attention to your gauge. You can't be way, way off because then you might run out of yarn, but you don't have to be so picky about your gauge with a shawl, where with something like a pair of mitts or a hat, you have to pay attention, because if your hat comes out too small or too big, you're not going to be able to use it. If your shawl comes out a little bit smaller, it's not the end of the world. So that is kind of a fun thing about a shawl too. The other pattern from Janina that I did pull is called the Drops of Joy. I grabbed this one just because it's a little bit different than the Gossamer. It's not so feminine, I guess is the best way I can put it. It doesn't have the picot edging. It's a little bit more clean and simple, but it still has the lace to it, and you're still going to be able to get it done with one skein of yarn. This one is also knit with fingering weight and has the exact same gauge of 20 stitches by 40 rows. It's also written and charted, but instead of having, like I said, all of that really frilly and feminine lace, it has eyelets and some fishnet lace, and it's just really well put together, I think. So yeah, along with these 2 patterns from Janina, if you're looking for some sort of shawl to use up one of those single skeins, I would definitely check her out on Ravelry. Of course, everything I'm talking about today is always linked down below in the description, so definitely check her out and see if there are any other shawl patterns that you love. If there are, let me know down below in the comments. I'd love to know kind of what you guys have found too, and what you're thinking you're going to use for your single skein projects, but these 2 really caught my eye. So 2 more patterns. I've pulled a scarf, and then I actually found a summer top that only uses up one skein of yarn. So let's go with this scarf first. This is the Soul Sister scarf by Sari Nordlund, and there are a couple different ways you can knit this. You can use fingering and lace held together. You could get away with just fingering weight yarn for a little bit more of a drapey piece, or you can use DK weight yarn as well. This also comes in 2 sizes, but you'll only be able to, the same as that one shawl that I pulled previous. Oh gosh, you'd think I'd remember the name by now. The Aperture shawl. Same as that one, you can only really knit the smaller size with 1 skein of yarn, but I thought the small size was cute enough to include it in this video, so I did. The gauge for this one is 21 stitches by 30 rows, and it's just so cute. This uses, if you're familiar with, I'm blanking on the name. This is a sweater I knit from Rebecca Clow. Let me look through my notes. I'll find it. Cargill! Oh my gosh. The Cargill sweater. If you saw the Cargill sweater that I knit, if you've seen any Cargill sweater, this scarf uses the same type of stitch pattern. Sari refers to it as a puff stitch. I've heard of it called a dip stitch as well, but it's just a really pretty squishy stitch. I did note in my notes that the pattern is really easy to modify. Sari did give some information like on the Ravelry page itself about how you can modify it, but I'm sure there's more included in the pattern. When I say modify, I mean like adjusting the width or the length or anything like that. So I feel like if you weighed out your skein of yarn before you cast on the small size for this, you could totally kind of pay attention, and when you got halfway, be like, okay, now I'm going to start decreasing. And then use up every little bit of that skein of yarn that you have. So I don't know. Are you into the scarf thing that's going around lately? Like, I know everyone really likes the Sophie scarf too. I don't know if it's really my thing, but they are cute. And the bigger size of this, like, I know that doesn't really fit into the using up one skein thing, but I think I would knit the bigger size. So yeah, really cute pattern. I think it's up a lot of people's alley, so I wanted to include it. And I think it's another really, like, the stitch pattern will just really make that pretty skein of yarn that you have shine. So, final pattern. Like I said, I found a top. This is the Summer Secret Top. It's a pattern by Jessie Maed Designs, and it comes in so many sizes. This is knit out of fingering weight yarn, 17 stitches by 29 rows. Will give you 4 inches of knitting, 4 inches square, and it comes in sizes extra small to 5XL. Now, I will say all of the sizes except for the 5XL, you should be able to get a 1 skein of fingering weight yarn. If you're knitting the 5XL, all I would do is find something like a little bit of scrap yarn or something you have, or a second skein that you love kicking around, and use it for like the straps and the ribbing, and you would totally be able to knit this as well. So that's why I included it. I know it's not perfect for absolutely everyone, but I think there's a lot of fun ways that you could use up like a couple special skeins in your stash and still get the beautiful little tank top. So I haven't said yet, but this is another free pattern, which is awesome. I think especially for a pattern that is so size inclusive and has so many different like, there's got to be so much information in there for there to be that many sizes included. That's, oh gosh, how many sizes? Like 11 or 12? I'm terrible at math, but that's a lot of sizes to be giving this pattern away as a gift for free. So I love it, and it's just cute. It's so cute. I think it would look really beautiful under like a plaid shirt as just like a little top underneath, a layering piece. You could also knit it out of cotton yarn, and I think it would be a really fun summer top. But it's just a really simple, like almost bandeau bralette type top. It's cropped a little bit, cute little skinny straps. I think it's adorable. And something about the straps, how they go into like a racer back in the back, I just think it looks so classy and cute. So yeah, like I said, tons of sizes. I'm rambling on this one because I was so pleased when I found this pattern and that it was free. Crazy. Sizes extra small through 5XL. That's going to be about 24 to 62 inches bust circumference, or 61 to 158 centimeters. The pattern does call for AEs of about 0 to 2 inches or 0 to 5 centimeters, and it's knit bottom up. So you're going to start at the bottom with the ribbing, move your way up. I'm not sure, I didn't look, to be honest, I did not look how the straps are attached or anything like that, but Jessie Maed's patterns are very full of information, so you can do it. I know you can do it. So that is everything I have pulled, but if you're joining in on the knit along, what are you knitting? Let me know. I want to know. Tell me down in the comments, let me know what skein of yarn you're using. I just think this is so fun because I know we all have skeins of yarn in our stash that are so pretty and you're just holding on to them like there's gonna be the perfect thing eventually. I know there is, but you never use them. And so I think this is a great way, a great idea that Carson had to use up some of those single skeins that you have kicking around in your stash. I know too, when I started knitting, I bought single skeins of yarn like crazy, and I love them. I still like them. I've gone through my yarn and got rid of the stuff that I don't like, but I just have a lot of single skeins kicking around that I really should use and make something that I'm gonna love out of them. So yeah, please let me know what you're doing and if you're joining us for this knit along. I don't think I said at the beginning, but there's gonna be prizes. If you want to donate a prize, please let me know. We would love to include your prize. The more the merrier. So yeah, thank you for joining me. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. And I will see you again next week for another podcast episode. Bye.